Let's talk about 6 stories that have gone viral recently and comment on them from a Christian perspective. You're not going to want to miss the last one. At number 6 is the Biden administration and the Department of Education announcing that $39 billion in federal student loan debt will be forgiven for thousands of borrowers.
Breaking news from the White House this morning. The Biden administration has announced that it is automatically forgiving $39 billion in federal student loan debt for thousands of borrowers.
The Biden administration is canceling $39 billion in student debt for more than 800,000 borrowers. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona saying this: for far too long, borrowers fell through the cracks of a broken system that failed to keep accurate track of their progress towards forgiveness.
The fact that President Biden made this announcement is particularly surprising, considering the Supreme Court had already struck down his earlier attempt to simply forgive student loans.
The other one that came down late on Friday was an opinion striking down, again by a 6-3 vote, Joe Biden's attempt to cram down a student loan bailout. So he does not have authority under the law in the United States to simply declare the student loan subsidized by the federal government. You don't have to pay those back.
The obvious problem with President Biden doing all of this is that it is simply unfair to punish people who took responsibility and worked hard to pay off their student loans, or people who don't have student loans because they learned a trade instead of going to college, by forcing them to subsidize the student loans of people who should really be paying off those student loans themselves.
When government turns the divine design on its head and protects those who do evil and makes those who do good afraid, it forfeits its divine purpose. In our world today, rulers are designing a culture that protects the immoral. It even has reached the point where it desires to protect criminals and makes those who do good afraid. When the criminals are unrestrained because they don't fear the consequences, but the police are restrained because they fear the consequences of stopping criminals, you know everything is turned on its head. Our government is the source of lies and the protector of liars and the enemy of those who speak the truth. It praises the evil and persecutes the good. So God's design for government has been entirely corrupted. As these divinely designed spheres of control in human society descend into chaos, the government will cease to function the way God designed it, and in fact, it will become the enemy of the divine design.
I want to know what you think in the comments below about Joe Biden's push for student loan forgiveness. At number 5 is Twitter beginning to monetize some of its largest creators and the dishonest politicization that has happened afterwards. Taylor Lorenz is a Washington Post journalist whom I have pretty much no respect for, and she wrote an extremely dishonest article titled "Far-Right Twitter Influencers First on Elon Musk's Monetization Scheme." Even someone like Ed Krasenstein, who is generally very much on the side of Taylor Lorenz and the Washington Post, called out Lorenz's dishonesty in this article. I want to address some of the things regarding Taylor Lorenz's Washington Post story. 1. I support most of her reporting. 2. Her story entitled "Far-Right Twitter Influencers First on Elon Musk's Monetization Scheme" is a terrible piece of journalism. 3. The article states, on Thursday, Twitter announced that it would begin sharing ad revenue with content creators. Fact is, this announcement actually came back in February. I specifically remember it, as do many others. 4. Her article goes on to claim the first beneficiaries appear to be a string of high-profile far-right influencers who tweeted before the announcement how much they've earned. Again, this is factually incorrect. Twitter sent out notifications to those receiving money at about 12:42 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. The first person tweeting about being paid was Ashley St. Clair at 1:04 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by Benny Johnson at 1:14 p.m. Eastern Time, and then many others. All of the influencers were not far-right influencers, unless you consider myself and Brian Krasserstein to be far-right. We both received more than any of those individuals mentioned in Taylor's article. Mr. Beast, $25,000, also received about the same as Brian and I. He is definitely not far right. 5. At the time of Taylor Lorenz's article, several left-leaning people had already tweeted that they were paid, including ourselves and Catherine Brodsky. But she claims in the article that, so far, the influencers who have publicly revealed that they are part of the program are prominent figures on the right. At the time, Brian's tweet about his payment had already received over 5 million impressions. This article was very bad reporting on behalf of the Washington Post and Taylor Lorenz, and that's coming from someone who normally likes the WAPO. Even though Twitter is of course not perfect, I'm still hoping that Twitter will succeed, because it is currently pretty much our last hope for having freedom of speech in the public square, since pretty much every other major social media platform is engaged in serious censorship of particular viewpoints. In related news, it seems that the hype surrounding the release of Threads, which aim to compete with Twitter, has died down significantly.
Mark Zuckerberg's Threads already working with the federal government to censor Americans? Say it isn't so. Say it isn't so. This couldn't possibly be happening. Mark Zuckerberg? He's as American as apple pie. I don't understand. Oh, and their usage, daily active users have dropped from a peak of 45 million on July 6th to 28 million on July 13th. That's nearly 40% drop in users after just 1 week. The time spent per user also tanked from 20 minutes on July 7th to less than 5 minutes. That's a 75% reduction in usage in just 4 days.
As Christians, it's important for us to continue proclaiming the truth of the Bible and of the gospel of Jesus Christ, no matter how much people try to shut down what we are saying.
You know, one time I was in an interview in Detroit, and a man said, I want to start the interview by asking you this question. How do you deal with the fact that so many people hate you? And I said, well, I really didn't know that until now. Thank you. And then I said this, when people say bad things about me, I always remember that they persecuted Christ.
I also want to know what you think, so feel free to share in the comments what you think about everything that's been happening at Twitter. At number 4 is the backlash over the leaked photos of the new Snow White movie. Matt Walsh had 2 posts that basically summarize what people have been talking about. He writes, "Have you seen this one yet? Disney's new live-action remake, because of course there's another one, features a Hispanic actress playing Snow White. Snow White is a 19th century German fairy tale. The name literally refers to the character's skin color. This is what actual cultural appropriation looks like. Probably the most blatant case we've seen yet." And Walsh also wrote, "When the internet first got a hold of these pictures of Snow Latina and the 7 slovenly hippies, the mockery came fast and hard and hilariously. A few hours after claiming the photos were fake, Disney backtracked and admitted that they lied. The photos were from the production. They are not fake, they just aren't official, meaning that Disney didn't officially release them, which is obviously not the same thing as being fake. This is like if somebody snaps a picture of me unkempt and gross looking in sandals and sweatpants buying diapers from Walmart at 11 p.m., and I claim that the pictures are fake because I didn't officially pose for them. That's not how fakeness works. Though it seems to indicate that Disney was so embarrassed by their own work that they try to lie and claim that the pictures aren't real. The company will spend hundreds of millions of dollars producing and marketing this film, and yet they are ashamed of it, as well they should be. We can already tell this film will be a travesty. Some are defending the Snow White movie by saying that it's good for the movie to be trying to be inclusive for modern audiences, and that it's the story that matters. However, we have also heard from the main actresses that the fundamental story of Snow White will also be changing.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign. I am.
Traditional ideas about masculinity and femininity are, more and more, being replaced by feminist ideas, which has been a big problem in many modern movies.
You know, one of the obvious yet unspoken consequences of the feminist movement is the feminization of men and the emasculation of men. Men no longer know how, nor have the permission to be men. And because of that, we have fathers who are uncomfortable stepping into their role of priest, prophet, provider, and protector in their home. It is a father's responsibility to represent his family before God and to represent God before his family. It is a father's responsibility to train and disciple his children, according to Ephesians 6:1-4, and the discipleship of his wife. You know, this washing with the water of the word that is emulated, you know, in the relationship between Christ and his church. And so it is of the utmost importance for fathers to step into that role. Number one, because it's what God commands. And secondly, because according to Ephesians chapter 5, in the marriage relationship, we are painting a picture of this relationship between Christ and his church. And so if I am, as a man, am not portraying my role accurately, I am misrepresenting the gospel, and I'm misrepresenting my Savior, and I am robbing my wife and my children of the most important means that God has given to lead them to be faithful followers of Jesus Christ. So it is of the utmost importance that I play that role. It's also important because as a father, I am, you know, imprinting the minds of my children as it relates to what my sons will look to be and my daughters will look to find in future mates. And so if I fall down on my job as a father, it will have multi-generational implications.
I also want to know what you think about this new Snow White movie. Share in the comments below. At number 3 is a viral tweet by ice cream maker Ben & Jerry's on the 4th of July that criticized the country.
So Ben & Jerry's put out a tweet that says, quote, "This 4th of July, it's high time we recognize the United States exists on stolen indigenous land and commit to returning it. Learn more and take action now." Which is interesting because Ben & Jerry's has a very nice headquarters over in Vermont. They can turn that back over to one of the local Native American tribes anytime. Anytime. It's all virtue signaling, but it really isn't virtue that's being signaled. It's stupidity that's being signaled.
Of course, it's the height of hypocrisy to call upon other people to return stolen land, yet be unwilling to return your own land to the people you say should receive it. In a humorous turn of events, a Native American tribe actually asked for the land that Ben & Jerry's headquarters are located at. But Ben & Jerry's seems to have gone radio silent about this request.
An indigenous tribe descended from the Native American nation that originally controlled the land in Vermont that Ben & Jerry's headquarters is located on, well, they want their land back. The chief of the Nulhegan band of Kusak Albenaki Nation told Newsweek they wanted to reclaim stewardship of their lands, but Ben & Jerry's had failed to approach them. Imagine my shock here.
Now, verse 15 gives us a key where it says, toward the middle of the verse, he knowing their hypocrisy. They put their hypocrisy on display. And you're going to see here something of the pathology of a hypocrite. We're going to get an analysis of a hypocrite here that is really quite insightful, along with seeing the story for its own sake. You're going to better understand the character of religious hypocrites.
Do you have any thoughts about this Ben & Jerry situation? Share in the comments below. At number 2 is the failure of the new Indiana Jones movie, The Dial of Destiny, and the failure of Disney in general.
But even my limited computational abilities were enough to tell me that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is likely to go down as one of the most expensive flops in Hollywood history. Not just because it stars an 80-year-old lead who was already over the hill when he did the last indie movie 15 years ago. Not just because it's being made by a studio with a long and sordid track history of deconstructing, humiliating and destroying popular legacy male characters in a pathetic attempt to elevate their boring, generic and flawless idealized female replacements.
The new Indiana Jones, like so many of Disney's modern movies, choose to destroy a beloved character and replace him with a strong female lead that completely overshadows and belittles the original Indiana Jones. Again, this new Indiana Jones movie is a great example of how destructive feminism can be. The result of Disney producing so many movies with these kinds of agendas is that fewer and fewer people are now watching Disney movies. resulting in Disney losing almost $1 billion through its last few releases.
Disney, the June Daily Mail reporting on this, is looking at an almost $900 million loss right now, following a series of woke flops at the box office. Apparently, there's an analysis out there showing that films like Lightyear, in which they decided to make Buzz Lightyear, The Little Mermaid, which is now woke. I'm trying to get the latest one. Elemental, that's one of the ones that includes a character, which had one of the worst openings ever. Worst opening weekend in company history.
We have a dominant media that pollutes people's minds with entertainment that is corrupt. And then we have social media where people can exploit themselves, corrupt themselves, and corrupt others. It is pandemic. The culture will not offer any solutions. It will only escalate the corruption. And while this is what this sinful world has chosen, it has become divine judgment.
What are your thoughts about what Disney is doing? Share in the comments below. At number 1 is Tucker Carlson's interview with Andrew Tate, which went absolutely viral. But interestingly, despite Tucker's immense popularity, many are criticizing him for doing this interview with Andrew Tate. Milk Bar TV created a video that went pretty viral in response to this interview, pointing out some things we should be concerned about regarding Andrew Tate.
What are you charged with? That's a really good question. I'm charged with being the head of an organized criminal group, which is in charge of recruiting girls to make TikTok videos.
They face charges which include human trafficking, rape, and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women.
OnlyFans is the best hustle in the world. That teaches basically how I got girls, how I met girls, how I got girls to like me, how I got girls to fall in love with me to work on webcam for me.
We got to the point where we had these guys falling in love with my models, serious, big time in love, right? Sending crazy money. And they were convinced they were gonna meet the chick. This is almost where I kind of felt bad. Because they were like, can we meet? I've sent you $200,000.
When you look at the money that I was actually bringing in, it just doesn't even scratch the surface.
I had these guys selling their houses, life savings, loans, all of it to me. Give me it all.
To be honest, I'm not really concerned about whether Andrew Tate is innocent regarding the charges against him. Even if he is innocent, I still think that the way Andrew used this webcam business to become rich is completely immoral, and I have not yet seen Andrew repent of this sin anywhere, despite his seeming change in religion and perhaps some of his values. Until or unless he does, I simply do not believe Andrew is a good example for anyone to follow. Andrew may say some good things about masculinity, freedom, the mainstream media, and government, but the webcam thing is just too serious a flaw to ignore.
The word immorality basically refers to any unlawful sexual act. Any unlawful sexual act. And to make life simple for everybody, there's only one lawful sexual act, and that is a sexual relationship between a man and a woman who are married. That's it. That's it. So anything other than that is unlawful and falls into the category of immorality. I'll say it again. God forbids any sexual activity apart from one man and one woman in marriage.
What are your thoughts about Andrew Tate? Share in the comments below.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like these videos and want to help support this channel, the best way to do it is to just watch these videos until the end and click the subscribe button. Thank you so much for your support and encouragement.